Welcome to King Billy's Wargames Basics Episode 1. Today we are going to look at the different levels of board wargames, going from the small tactical level wargame to the worldwide strategic level wargame. To do this, we are going to look at 5 different World War II land-based wargames and compare the sizes of the maps and the units represented in those wargames. The first wargame we're going to have a look at is Advanced Squad Leader, probably the most popular tactical level wargame in the world today. Advanced Squad Leader, or ASL as it is commonly known, represents tactical level combat at the squad level. The basic infantry counter is the squad, representing between 8 and 12 men, each armed with rifles or submachine guns, and any inherent light machine gun. It is represented by a half-inch counter depicting 3 figures. Leaders are represented by a single man counter. Additional light weapons such as machine guns, light mortars, light anti-tank weapons and flamethrowers are represented by individual counters as well. Here we have a German squad, a leader and an additional light machine gun counter. Larger weapons such as anti-tank guns and vehicles are represented by larger 5/8 inch counters. Here we have a German 75mm anti-tank gun and a Panzer Mark IV tank. The ASL boards are representations of the battlefields where small unit actions take place. The scale used on the boards is about 40 metres per hex. You can see that terrain is represented in a fair amount of detail, with different levels on hills, streams, bridges, roads, woods, buildings, etc., all displayed on the board. The next game we're going to have a look at is Panzer Grenadier. This is a higher level tactical wargame where units are represented at the platoon level. The scale of the hexes is increased to about 100 metres per hex. Terrain is still represented in a fairly detailed level. In Panzer Grenadier, an infantry unit represents about 3 ASL squads, with leadership, perhaps some additional light weapons. A tank platoon represents 3 to 5 individual tanks. The next game is quite an old game published by Avalon Hill, called The Longest Day. It represents the D-Day landings and subsequent fighting in Normandy. To my mind, this is the highest level of tactical land wargame. Some people prefer to call games of this scale operational level games. The scale of the game has increased again. This time, hexes are 2 kilometres across, about 20 Grenadier hexes, and about 50 ASL hexes. The detail on the board still show the terrain. Roads, hills, rivers, wooded areas are represented in some detail, but not to the extent of the previous 2 games. Units are represented by battalions. An infantry battalion would be made up of about 11 Panzer Grenadier platoons, while a Panzer battalion would have about 12 to 15 Panzer platoons. Fortress Europa is another older game, this time by Jedco Games. It covers the fighting in France and Germany from the D-Day landings to the end of the war, and it is a strategic level game. The scale of the game has increased dramatically. The entire Longest Day map would take about 7 hexes by 5 hexes. Terrain has become very basic, only representing those things that would affect strategic decisions, such as mountain ranges, dense forests, cities and rivers. Roads and bridges have disappeared, while railroads, which allow strategic movement, are prominent. The basic unit is now the division, as shown by the 2nd Panzer Division and the 277th Infantry Division. We can see that in Longest Day, the 277th Infantry Division had some 8 infantry battalions, 4 artillery battalions and engineer support. The 2nd Panzer Division had 3 tank battalions, 3 half-track mounted and 2 truck-mounted infantry battalions, an armoured car battalion, and artillery and anti-air units as well. The last game we will look at is World in Flames by the Australian Design Group. This strategic level game covers the entire World War II across the globe. While there are air and navy units in the game, the focus is still on land combat. The scale is truly massive, with the entire Fortress Europa board fitting into an area of about 15 hexes square. The terrain has become very basic, with only large features of major cities included. There are no roads and even rail networks have disappeared. The basic unit is now the core, fairly loosely defined structure which changes as circumstances required. An infantry corps may consist of 3 infantry divisions, while a panzer corps would normally have a mix of units, perhaps a panzer division, a panzer grenadier division, and an infantry division, perhaps a heavy panzer battalion in support.
Well, there you have it. A look at some of my favourite games. From the small tactical level game pitting man against man across the battlefield to the truly massive worldwide conflict of World War II. There are some games in between these levels. There are a number of company level games and a number of regimental level games. I haven't covered those, but they follow the same sort of lines and increase in sizes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my look at the basics of tactical and strategic level games, and I hope to see you again in the future.